Hey everyone, this is Lucas, and welcome to the Foojee Show, episode number 6. Today I have a very special guest with us today that I think you guys are going to really enjoy hearing from. This is Mike Benz. I met Mike through a few friends over the past several months, and even this morning we were just going back and forth about Tesla banter and news and which cars he has on order from Tesla. So I know you guys will really enjoy them. Mike, actually, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do day to day? What pays the bills in your house?
Well, I appreciate it. I think what pays the bills is actually my wife. But as far as my career is concerned, I'm an attorney, and I specialize in intellectual property law, primarily patent litigation. So for me, I litigate all tech. I've done everything from telecom to pharmaceuticals.
Wow, how long have you been doing that?
Probably about 8.5 years now.
Wow. I think you guys will see, we work with a lot of law firms, and when Daniel and Jimmy introduced Mike to me, it's very apparent. Like, he's passionate about what he does. He loves the hustle. He cares about his work. And he loves Apple products.
I do.
So which Apple products do you use like in your day-to-day?
Oh, gosh. So first and foremost, obviously my phone is I'm tethered. My wife hates it, but I love it. It gives me all my updates. I have my Apple Watch, iPad Pro, have iPad minis for the kids, because without them I can't think. I've got the iMac. I mean, you name it, we've got it.
Right. Wow. And do you use so you're using it night and day? Do you use the do not disturb mode at night, or no? Like you're full on.
I do. So I have to shut it down, right?
Okay,
or else my wife will kill me. So from 11 to about 7 a.m. I'm on do not disturb. But I'm constantly still peeking over like, hey Siri, anybody there?
Hey Siri. Right?
Yeah.
Are you running iOS 10 beta?
Yeah. The whole 9 yards.
I should have known that.
The whole 9 yards.
So before we get into the nitty gritty of what you're doing day to day, some good apps that I think we'd love for you to share that you use. Like, why Apple products? Why do you have such an affinity for them?
They just work, right? So like from the second I joined a law firm, the first thing they're giving you is like, we need something with absolute security. So here is a BlackBerry. It's a dinosaur, but of course it works. And you're like, well, can I use my iPhone? And they're like, whoa. The Apple products don't work.
Course.
And, over time, I think law firms have gotten kind of accustomed to the fact that Apple has a lot of security measures that they like and things like that. But, I'm not going to name any specific PC, but gosh, when you boot them up and you're waiting like 30 minutes, time is ticking. Time is money, particularly in the law firm world. Billable hours is what's important. And the less we can bill, the less money we make, the less work we can do for our clients. So the expedition of Apple products is kind of what's gotten me there. They just work all the time.
Right. Now, what are some apps that you're using? Speaking of, billable time, time is money, whether it's like the built-in app, if there are any built-in apps that you just love, or there's some third-party apps that you've kind of worked into your workflow too.
So, one of the biggest things that we use is Citrix, right? So that Citrix environment allows me to kind of use my PC desktop and use my Apple products anywhere. So for the most part, I leave my PCs docked, and then I just access them remotely.
Cool. So you've got your PC at the office.
Yep.
But you're using your Mac most of the day? Is that what you're doing?
My iPad Pro, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah. iPad Pro, and you're using Citrix into it.
Correct. And if I need to, right? So all these things are stored on a server, but you can access them through Citrix. Otherwise, I'm using my email. Yeah,
because I would, it's a good point. I would never recommend a law firm buying all Macs and all iPads to just use Citrix to tunnel into. Oh, I think we lost light for a second. We good? Okay. Cool.
You want to charge his phone.
Yeah. Got to charge your phone. Oh, there it goes again. Anyway, so I wouldn't recommend a firm just buying Macs to tunnel into their PCs 8 hours a day. It's kind of a waste of a Mac, right?
I can see that.
But you can still use your iPad Pro or your Mac for most of your work, for half of your work.
So I do a lot of traveling. I'm always on the roads between depositions, expert preps, meeting with clients, meeting with potential clients. I need connectivity, right?
Yeah.
And the most important thing for me is being able to respond to my clients and be able to coordinate with my fellow attorneys and, support staff and kind of get the work done. I mean, it's not complicated. We're not doing ridiculous amounts of things. It's typically Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all of those are easily accessible on my iPad Pro. Sometimes I rip out the MacBook Air, but it's
Okay.
very rare that I feel I need to travel with my PC. Like,
Wow.
it's just the size of it, the heft.
Sure.
Plus, it's one of the only products you can't turn on while you're taxiing on the airplane.
That's true. Yeah, I took advantage of that.
Yeah.
And one thing that goes unnoticed about the iPads are the LTE connectivity.
Yes.
You know,
Huge.
Even yes, on a laptop, you can pull out your phone and turn on the personal hotspot.
Right.
But there's something just graceful about turning on your iPad Pro. You're connected without any fuss and switches. And
That's
things
kind of
like
probably the biggest thing. So
Yeah.
why tether when I can just focus purely on something that's already got its own service, right?
Right.
And that's kind of the advantage of the iPad Pro.
Cool. So you mentioned Citrix, the Office Suite, Word,
Yep.
Excel, PowerPoint. Anything else? Any just good go-to apps that you're using throughout the day?
Pokemon Go.
Of course.
I mean,
Right.
let's be honest.
Yeah.
I think one of the functionalities of everything is the fact that you have some enjoyment on your actual suites. But no,
Right.
all jokes aside, we use a significant amount of apps. And fortunately, courts are starting to catch up. So
Okay,
we
yeah.
use a lot of software that mirrors and can transport onto actual PCs. And that allows us to use that functionality in the courtroom.
I
Because
see.
probably maybe
Makes
about
sense.
3 or 4 years ago, while the rest of the world had moved on
Mhm.
and started using iPads and other tablets in their day-to-day,
Yeah.
like you're looking at lawyers and judges who are just kind of like, well, what's that? Not in my courtroom. And you're like, but sir, it's my brief. And they're like, I
Right.
don't want to hear it. But now they're starting to catch on, right?
Right,
So instead
yeah.
of just using
Wow.
an actual projector, we're actually able to transmit directly from our iPads in some courtrooms right onto the screen for the judge.
Right. So that's a good segue. Like I see you with not just the passion, but you're
Sure.
actually making these products work, right?
Oh, yeah.
For your day-to-day work.
Yeah.
Why do so many law firms hesitate using Apple products for their firm?
You know what?
Or do you ask yourself that question too?
I do, right? So the first step is, why do law firms hesitate to embrace technology?
Yeah.
And I
okay.
think that the people that make the decision
Mhm.
are extremely knowledgeable, brilliant people,
Yeah.
but they just don't know tech, right? So technology moves at a mile a minute. But these guys are like, well, I'm going to dictate this, and my secretary is going to handle the rest. And you're like, well, that's
Yeah.
great, but
Mhm.
how are we advancing, such as the law firm is going to be able to catch up with our clients? How can you pitch to a Apple or another big company who's embracing technology without knowing technology? And
Right.
so we struggle with that a lot. I think the younger attorneys tend to recommend to the law firm or to the higher ups, hey,
Mhm.
you should check this out. And they're like, nah, my grandson does that. And you're like,
Right.
that doesn't mean we can't use it. And I think that's usually the biggest struggle.
They kind of dismiss it as a consumer service, a consumer app.
That's right.
And I'm even humbled by that, just seeing other people using apps
Yeah.
for purposes that I would think of, right? But hey, it gets the job done.
It certainly does.
So, what do you think are specific benefits? You've touched on a couple of these.
Mhm.
What do you think that benefits that Apple products have that other technology doesn't, right? Like, so if you had, say, a Surface Pro or just other branded software, what do you think Apple does specifically well?
So for me, I think, and by the way, I've been in households where people are using Surface Pros, and they're kind of favoring some other non-Apple devices.
Yeah.
And our household, I think what I like about is the integration suite. Like for me, I go across platforms like nobody's business. I'll be on my phone for a little bit, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to transfer this to my iPad, or I'm going to go from my iPad and I'm going to go running, but I'm going to use my watch, right? So I'm keeping tabs on everything going on. I have immediate alerts from the people in the know, like, oh, well, the client just emailed me, time to run back. Like, you hate to say it, but all of those things work together. And even like our calendar, my wife's functionality too. Like she uses Apple products too because she likes the fact that she can go in, see my calendar, and not have access to everything, and we're just kind of working in sync, the whole house.
I agree. Like Apple does, as they've always done, back from like in 2001 with the very first iPod and the iMacs, they've always done integration really well. And I think, people like you and I are kind of on cutting edge. We're waiting for our watch to talk to our phone, to talk to our Mac even more with every single release. And I think they're doing that. They are delivering. But I think there may be some naysayers who might say, I don't want to know when an email comes in when I'm running.
Right. Fair enough.
And like my answer to them is you can control that.
Yeah.
Right? You can control those notifications.
That's exactly right.
And I'm even kind of wrestling with how much do I need to know when it is family time.
Right.
Or if I'm just in a meeting with other team members, when is it time to turn it off? So
Sure.
I think that's one good thing to acknowledge is like, yes, this integration across all devices is awesome. But you can also depict, how many times you're being notified.
Oh yeah. The do not disturb button
throughout
is
the day.
important.
Yeah.
In my house.
Now, do you ever use that during the work day?
Without a
Do you ever
doubt.
kind of like get in the zone?
You ever get
turn
like
that
group messages from all your buddies and you're just kind of like, guys, I need you to be quiet? So the fact that when they rolled out that update that allowed you to put do not disturb on an individual conversation,
Right.
I think I praised Steve Jobs at that point. I was like, yes, this is awesome.
May he rest in peace, because he wasn't here for that. But
Exactly.
Still,
but I think, I think it's a thinking, right?
Sure.
The key, and just like law firms, I think the thinking comes from the top down, right? So not just Jobs, but other people of his ilk. The key is to invest in a culture.
Right.
And I think Apple's continued that culture, and I think that's what's important.
Yeah. So what does IT support typically look like for law firms? IT support.
So I love my IT folks, for the record.
Okay.
I want to make that abundantly clear. They're the guys that actually fight for us to get more tech, right? They're
That's true,
always on the cutting edge. They're on the ground level. They're reading up and they're keeping abreast of things. So when I call my IT folks, I'm like, hey, why don't we do this? And they're like, I don't know. But they're also the ones fighting for us at the top. They've got to convince the board, the law firm, that it makes sense to kind of transition to a new tech.
Right.
They've got to show security. They've got to show functionality. They've got to show that they can handle it. And, those are the things that take time. And that process does not necessarily keep up with tech itself. But our IT department's really strong. In fact, most of our IT department uses Apple products. So they do much of what I do as well. So it was nice to know that when I said, hey, guys, I really don't want to use this kind of giant 20-pound laptop that you gave me. Can I use my stuff? And they were like, not a problem. And they were able to give me the right software. They were able to give me access remotely.
That's awesome.
Anything that would allow me to remote wipe. All that stuff is important. Right?
I think firms that have that type of IT department, have plenty to be thankful for.
Yes.
And even firms that don't have IT teams like that, like you said, it's the job of the IT department to make sure that the end users, the employees, are secure.
Yeah.
Right. Especially in the legal
extremely
type of
important
industry. And ultimately, as I see IT, because we do IT. Right?
Yeah.
That's all we do for our clients is to serve the end user's needs.
Right.
And so sometimes it's hard to switch those gears, right? Like, and I can speak from experience.
Right.
I do want to keep my client secure, but when they do, request a new device, like, can I please use this? It's easy for the IT people to say, wait, is this secure? And kind of put up the, a little bit of a defense.
Right. And that actually goes back to your first question of, well, why do Apple products work so well for you?
Yeah.
I think when they realized that things like the iPad, the iPhone, and all those things work interchangeably, many of those app suites come out, and it's the same exact implementation on an iPad versus on a phone.
Right.
I spent months explaining that to my old firm's IT department. Like, they're the same. They run the same iOS. And they're like, no. We got approval for the phone, not for the tablet. You're like, okay, whatever. That's fine. We'll talk about this in a week.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
And going back, I think Apple does a good job every year of small iterations. But they're doing these small iterations across all of their devices.
Right.
And that's one thing that I like to rely on is when there's a new feature for the iPhone.
Right.
You can kind of pretty much bet that it's going to be on the Mac.
That's right.
Within a year or two, once they kind of roll forward.
That's exactly.
And so that makes approving new initiatives a whole lot easier.
And it reduces the learning curve, right? I mean, I think one thing that we've actually seen in law firms is that law firms do understand that everyone wants a phone now.
Yeah.
We make fun of clamshells because it's kind of like, who has that still? Mm-hmm. But now at least our older management is getting iPhones.
Yep.
And once they get the hang of that, then it's baby steps. Look at this. It's just a larger version. Try that out. And, they're understanding a little bit more.
No, that's a perfect segue. You mentioned something earlier where, talking about how you guys have to catch up or stay on pace with your clients, right? Where do you see technology, kind of a vague question, but still want your input, where do you see technology in the legal industry moving forward? How is that going to evolve and help your industry more?
So I think, as I mentioned before, we always, we being the legal industry, tend to be a step or two behind.
Okay.
And really is because we want to make sure, right, lawyers are extra careful. And
Sure,
in being
yeah.
extra careful, you don't jump out there to the fact that you may then be liable later. So making sure the right securities are in place, making sure that you're going to have proper functionality that's going to keep up with your client is important. But those clients are helping us to get there. You know, we have clients that have specific security initiatives, clients that have specific technician initiatives, and if you can't keep up with them, then you know you're not really going to do your service. We are a services industry, so I think that's going to pull us along a lot faster.
Right, and thankfully the legal industry has people like you who you're on how many electric cars now have you owned?
Me personally,
Yes.
I'm on my third. If you count my wife, 4, and then more than that if you count
Good
hybrids.
night. Cool. Well, we want to just encourage you and count on you to keep, pulling the legal industry forward.
That's
because
the goal.
I think you've got a lot to offer. Now, anything else just thoughts on the latest iOS 10 that you have? What device are you currently using? Like what phone? Are you
Sure.
using?
So I have an iPhone 6s
Okay.
Plus,
You
and
do have
so
a
I
Plus,
was one of the
okay.
guys who really
Okay.
liked the size of that because it really allowed me to reduce the use of my iPad. So
Right.
that was important. And then the transition to the Pro, it's like, okay, it's time for a big job. Bust out the big Pro.
Exactly.
But I like the little Pro. My wife got that, and she's
Okay, the
excited about
9.7.
that too. Yeah, the 9.7.
Awesome. So, as we're wrapping up, is there anything you want to kind of take an opportunity? Like, how can people learn about you and what you're doing? Or is there anything you want to kind of promote, to our audience while you're here?
Sure. So I recently made a transition with several other individuals to open up the Atlanta office of Parker Poe. And that's Parker Poe, Adams, and Bernstein, parkerpoe.com. They're a 150-year-old Carolina firm who just has ventured into the Atlanta market. So we're here and we're out meeting folks, and we want to make sure that you know that we're integrating into the environment. And for that, we've got lots of clients here, and we'd love to meet you and love to assist you. So check us out at parkerpoe.com, and if you need anything, you know where to find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for watching. If you have any questions about a law firm or just about using these Apple products in business, just comment or use Instagram, Twitter with the hashtag AskFoojee. We'd love to answer those. We've got some good questions in previous episodes. One of them about like note taking and using sales, using Apple products in sales roles. So we've got plenty of content for the next few episodes to
Love
fill
these
in.
guys.
Cool. So Mike, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Appreciate it.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you find value in these episodes, be sure to subscribe so you'll get notified every time a new one is released.